We've spoken about push factors. Push factors is the first step in the immigration story. Those are the reasons why an immigrant leaves their native country. Native country, again, it's the country you're born in or the country you live the most time in. So obviously push factors weren't good things. Opposite of push is pull. The next step in the immigration process is, okay, I've decided to leave my native country. Where am I going to now? So our definition for pull factor is this: conditions which attract an immigrant into a new country. Think of it maybe as a magnet. Okay, the new country is a magnet and it's drawing you in. So these are going to be good things in a country that draws immigrants to that country. So we'll go through 4 or 5 common pull factors from this time period. Remember, we're just looking at 1870 to 1920. These are the common pull factors. Number 1, jobs. We learned that economics and poverty was probably the biggest push factor. If you're poor, don't have a job, don't have enough money, you're going to a place that offers jobs. So for a lot of immigrants during this time period, and we'll study this when we look at urbanization and the growth of the city, they're being drawn into big cities for factory jobs. Another common pull factor, farming. Millions and millions and millions of people were farmers back during this time period. The United States had a lot of free and cheap land. We spoke about this with the West. The railroad companies were selling and giving away land. We had the Homestead Act. Hopefully you're starting to see some of these connections play out. The Homestead Act, which gave you 160 acres for $10. So Europeans that were raised to be farmers but don't have land, suddenly they're like, the United States is the place to be because I can get a lot of land that's cheap, or in some cases, absolutely free. Another reason immigrants were drawn to the United States was freedom. The United States has a pretty decent history of certain freedoms, religious freedom. We have the First Amendment, freedom of religion. We're a democracy. We have voting. We don't have kings and queens, things like that. So I'm not saying the United States is a perfect democracy, but compared to a lot of countries in the world during this time period, it was definitely more democratic than other places. The final one, and maybe you've heard this term before, the United States had a reputation as being the land of opportunity. And I wrote on here, the United States had a reputation as a rich country with many jobs. Another way you could look at the land of opportunity is the land of opportunity was the idea, which may or may not have been true for all immigrants, that you could show up to the United States with virtually nothing in your pockets, maybe don't even speak the language, you're super poor, and you can find a job, and through hard work, you can gradually make your way up in life. And you work that job, and then 2-3 years later, you get another job that's higher paying, and you continue to go up. So you're not necessarily always poor. Another common expression during this time period was that the streets were paved with gold. And it was the idea that the United States was a rich country. There were economic opportunities. I don't think that immigrants literally thought that the streets were paved with gold when they came over here. It was more of an expression than anything else. Okay, final one is family already in the United States. We looked at a picture earlier that was just women and children, and I introduced the idea that a lot of times the dad or an older brother would come over first, they'd find a place to live, they'd find a job, and they would send for the rest of the family. Or sometimes it was maybe a cousin came over from Europe or China or Mexico or whatever, and they write back home and they're like, this place is great, I have my own place, I have a job, I'm not starving to death. And that might encourage other family members, extended family members, to come over. Okay, as you're looking through these, you need to start thinking, these were the common pull factors back then. Are these still common pull factors today in 2023? In other words, are people still coming to the United States for these reasons? Also, are there pull factors today